Hello, everybody. Once again, this is Fred Nwankwo bringing you the second part of our series, Biafra, Nigeria, Gowon, and the Betrayal of a Nation. This is the first time we're doing a two-part series because it turns out the video was so long that for some reason it wasn't uploading uniformly on YouTube. It was freezing. So we've done the part one. Now we're going to the part two. Now listen to some of what Gowon said that made Mayegun go ballistic on him. Just listen.
And to discuss various matters, especially.
The only thing he could remember in his 9 years of being Nigeria president, 9 years, right? All he could remember was how he said he fought the war. I can remember that some people were saying we were too slow when we were fighting the war, that maybe Nigeria would not make it. But did we do it? Did we do it? That is the only pride he has. He was the one who declared no winner, no vanquish. And that is why genocidists were rewarded. Some of them even died. They died, like some would say, they died somehow like disgracefully. The same Muritala was killed like a worthless piece of shit that he was.
Yes, a worthless piece of crap. That's exactly what Muritala Muhammad was.
But what did Nigeria do? He's a hero. Your heroes passed. They even make money for him. They put his name on their airports. Put his name on their currency. A murderer. And that's exactly the generation this criminal also came from. But look at them. You need to be patient with Tifnumbu, he said. Be patient. Give him time. He's working everything there. With everything on. I want fossils. So every time I see his face, honestly, I just feel so angry. That is the guy behind what all of us are now facing today. Okay? Those are the people who are behind the propaganda of one Nigeria that was never won. Those are the people who saw through the death of millions of people that could still be alive, that could have contributed greatly to humanity. This bunch of Olori Brukus that never really had anything but misery and then poverty.
And our healing in Nigeria will start when Nigeria starts bringing down names like that bring down that name, Muritala Muhammad Airport in Lagos, put it down and set fire on the name. And get up a nice gold sign and put up a sign at that airport in Yoruba land and call that airport Chief Obafemi Awolowo International Airport. Go read up on what Muritala Muhammad did to Igbos in Asaba. Came into Asaba and invited them to bring out all the men. This is true stories, guys. To bring out the men in the town so that he could thank them and they welcome him into Asaba for liberating them from the Biafran army. And the only lucky men in that situation were the ones who did not respond to the call. Those men gathered and Muritala Muhammad ordered his soldiers to kill all the men, defenseless Igbo men.
Nzambe nakomitunaka o, Yawe nakomitunaka o, poso mwindo eutande wapi o, poso mwindo eutande wapi o, koko na biso ya kala yenani ye, Yesu mwana Nzambe yende mondele, Adamu na Eva bangonde mindele, basantu nyonso bangonde mindele, pona nini yo na mitunaka Nzambe nakomitunaka o, Yawe nakomitunaka o, babukwa Nzambe tomonaka boye, basantu nyonso foto se mindele, banjelu nyonso bango se mindele, soki zabulu foto moto moindo, injustice utande wapi yo na mama Nzambe o nakomitunaka o, poso mwindo eutande wapi yo, moto mwindo eutande wapi yo, banoko bakanga biso mayele boye, bikekwa bakoko bango baboyaka, kisa bakoko bango bandimaka te, kasi na ndako Nzambe biso tomonaka, tokosambela chapele na maboko, tokosambela bikeko bitondi ndako, kasi bikeko yango se mindele, pona nini Nzambe Nzambe o nakomitunaka o, Nzambe o nakomitunaka o, baprofeti ya mindele biso tondimaka, kasi ya bato mwindo bango bandimaka te, pona nini Nzambe osala biso boye, Afrika miso efungwami, Afrika tosanga sima te, mama nakomitunaka
Now listen to what Deola Fayehu said about Gowon's meeting with President Tinubu. And it sounds so good coming from a non-Igbo. Just listen.
You know, the government is trying their best to deal with the various problems of the country, but with Nigerians, don't you worry, you can get criticized. We've got to Nigerians have to give the president time to get things really done.
Can you imagine? Because Yakubu Gowon is like 89. I thought the man would talk some sense into the presidency. Of course, people are not happy with what Gowon said, especially considering the fact that he now cited his own tenor as an example, that Nigerians were also criticizing him when he was waging war against Biafrans, that he was slow.
I think if I remembered, I was told that I was fighting the war, I was too slow, and probably Nigeria cannot make it, and that we should not seek for a discussion. Well, did we do it or not?
Can you imagine? Excuse me, sir. Did you do what? What did you do? You killed Millions of your citizens. Are we boasting about this? Somebody that should be apologizing for that war, that senseless war. Can you imagine a whole president that should be asking for forgiveness? Yes, sir, you should be ashamed though. At the age of 89, no. Wow.
Thank you, Deola. That's where Nigeria's hope lies. When we come to the issue of Igbos, Biafra, genocide, maltreatment of a certain segment, the hope doesn't lie in Fred Nwankwo, the Igbo person, talking about it. Because bigots will write it off as he's an Igbo person, they're troublemakers. Nigeria's hope for fixing Nigeria's problem when it relates to Igbos lies in progressive Yorubas like Miss Fayehu and people like I'll bring you next, Mayegun and Dele Farotimi and Dele Momodu, Aisha Yesufu. I could go on, but I can't. But I'm just naming you non-Igbo names. I'm talking about Igbos. Do you realize that in Biafra they were using some components of palm oil to make the fuel that the fighter jets were using to fight against Nigeria? Ingenious. Do you realize that they were using coconut water to make brake fluids, and it was working? And do you realize that they built a very destructive bomb called Obunigwe, and Nigeria was very scared of it? There's a reason I'm asking those questions. Watch this next video from Arise TV.
In recent years, sustainable aviation fuel has emerged as a potential game changer, offering a greener alternative to traditional jet A1 fuel. It is important at this very challenging period of Nigeria's economic quagmire for both the public and private sectors to collaborate in the exploration of the future of SAF and its potential implications for Nigeria's aviation industry and future economic development, particularly in light of the country's vast availability of oil palm trees and the oil palm belt. Joining us now is Sonny Roche, financial and infrastructure consultant and chairman, Strategic Alliance Promotion Company. Good morning, Mr. Roche. Thank you for joining us in the studio.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Rufai.
Good, sir.
Good to be here.
I've read a piece you wrote about sustainable aviation fuel, the advantages and examples of countries' airlines, like Indonesia Airlines, United Airlines in the US, using sustainable aviation fuel, palm oil, derived from palm oil, and how Brazil has done a lot in terms of alternative energy sources. But my immediate reaction is that for us in Nigeria, this is not new. Where did we miss it? During the Civil War, one professor, I don't remember his name immediately, he's 99 years old now. He's still alive.
Okay.
He was the one who helped the Biafran, Air Force to use palm oil to fly their aircraft in the same country. The man is still alive. So, but take us through the advantages of this alternative option, and also why Nigeria could not even take advantage of the brilliance, ingenuity that scientists on the Biafran side showed.
I knew about the Biafran Research and Production, called RAP. It was headed by late Professor Gowon Ezekwe, who later became Minister for Science and Technology in Nigeria. And apart from using palm oil, the Biafrans also used coconut water for brake fluid. Those are the, but what we did was the Biafra died, and all the ingenuity that happened in Biafra were also allowed to die. The advantages of SAF, as it's called, Sustainable Aviation Fuel. One, it diversifies our economy, our reliance on fossil fuel. it also would create employment, and it is also important for net zero climate change. Having an additional source of foreign exchange earner. Do you know the number of airlines we have in the world? Once we can get our oil palm research institution like NIFO and even the NMPC researchers to see how the aviation sector, not only in Nigeria, Africa, but the world, can come and patronize our own sustainable aviation fuel. It has a technological advantage. It would improve our economy seriously. It will create employment, and it would help to reduce the depletion of the ozone layer.
Now, Biafrans lasted 2.5 years in a war that should have lasted 1 week because of the ingenuity of Biafran scientists and also the ingenuity of the average Biafran on the street. These are Nigeria's benefits, not Igbo benefits. When the Second World War ended, remember that America and Britain fought Germany and Japan. When the war ended, there was a mad rush between Britain and America for scientists from Germany, because even though Germany was defeated, but America recognized how tough it was to beat Germany and what they can benefit by tapping the brains of those German scientists. Today, when you talk about the Nobel Prize in Science, America, in an unbalanced way, leads the world in the number of Nobel Prize winners in science. But when you start reading the name of those Nobel Prize winners in science, you're going to see that a lot of those names are not indigenous American names. And when I say indigenous, they did not come to America before 1945. There are people who America brought in, naturalized, gave them citizenship, gave them great jobs, great salaries, locked them up, not literally, locked them up in a lab to build America, and build America they did. Igbos are brothers and sisters to Yorubas and Fulanis and Hausas and Edos and Ishangs and Ibibios and Efiks and Ijos and all those people in Nigeria, figuratively, are brothers and sisters of Igbos. But because of hate, envy, and jealousy, Nigeria shut down the science out of Biafra, the science that sustained the war for 2.5 years. And all that ingenuity went to waste. The only surviving person from that bunch, according to Dr. Abati, is 99 years old. And you can't get much out of him. But I could guarantee you one thing. You still have Igbos in Nigeria today that if you give them the opportunity, in collaboration with bright Yorubas and bright Fulanis and all that, we can build that country to become Dubai in 10, 15 years and compete internationally in science and technology. But it's not going to happen when a drug dealer who is bigoted is your president. And the president for the 8 years preceding him is a person who hates Igbos with a passion, but is quick to tell you he doesn't hate Igbos because his driver is Igbo. Folks, we have opportunities, and Gowon was in a position to empower or destroy Nigeria at the end of the Civil War. And he chose to destroy it by the stupid decisions he made. And one of those stupid decisions is the claim him and his collaborators made against Igbos, that Igbos were the ones who planned the coup in 1966. My question is this: let's assume Igbo officers planned the coup. How many of those innocent Igbos that were massacred in the north and the ones killed in the Civil War to the tune of millions, how many of them were consulted by the soldiers who planned the coup? Likewise, if those soldiers were claimed to be Yorubas, how many innocent Yorubas would have been consulted by the people who planned the coup? It's all about hate.
Let me very quickly correct one historical profanity. One historical profanity. Because by the grace of God, I'm not just a lawyer, I'm an historian, and things must be put in historical perspective. Whenever I hear people say the 1966 coup was an Igbo coup, it is a lie from the pit of hell. It is not true. It was a coup led by dissatisfied, disgruntled Nigerians. There were 21 people in all, with the forefront leader being Major Kaduna Nzogu Chukwuma from Okpanam near Asaba in the present day state. Therefore, let me tell you that others who have always made them to say it was an Igbo coup were Major Emmanuel Ifeajuna, Major Chris Anuforo, Major Timothy Onwatuego, Major Humphrey Chukwuka, Major Don Okafo, Captain Ben Bullier, Captain Emmanuel Mobusi, and Captain Ogbu Oji. These were the 7 Igbos. But now, let us look at the list of the coup players. We have Major Adewale Ademoyegun. He was Yoruba. He's the one who authored the book, Why We Struck. We had Captain G. Adeleke. He was Yoruba. We had Captain Fola Oyewole. He was Yoruba. Who authored the book, The Reluctant Rebel. We had Lieutenant Aru Egbiko. He was Asian from our own Edo State. We had Lieutenant Tijani Kasina. He was Hausa Fulani. We had Lieutenant O. Olafe Miyo, Yoruba. We had Captain Gibson Jalo. He was of the Middle Belt. We had Lieutenant Hope Harris Egaga. He was an Urobo man. We had Lieutenant Dag Waribori. He was an Ijoman. We had Second Lieutenant Saleh Dambo. He was Hausa. And we had, finally, Second Lieutenant John Atom Bera. Many of you knew him as a military administrator. He was of TV extraction.
And for those of you who are still wondering why Igbos decided to go their separate ways, listen to this short soundbite from Odumegwu Ojukwu, and also listen to the little interview that a British press person had with Cyprian Ekwensi, and put yourself in those shoes. If your tribe was in those shoes, would you stay? There's a proverb in Igbo that says that it's a tree that will hear that you're coming to cut it down, and it stands there and waits till you cut it down. Human beings don't do that. Igbos left Nigeria to preserve themselves because, from all intents and purposes, the Fulani Cabal was intent on wiping out Igbos because they want a place where they could run their jihad through without any challenge.
We have tried to live a Nigeria designed by Great Britain and handed to us. We have found it difficult to live in that Nigeria. We have fought a civil war, killed so many people, and still we have the same problems reoccurring. Perhaps the time has come to revisit the very foundations of Nigeria.
Last time you and I met was in the Pleasant Garden in Lagos, at the time when you were information chief for the Nigerian government. Did you have any premonition, any feeling that something like this would happen?
No, I didn't have any feeling that something as disastrous as this would happen, but everyone had.
No.
But we all had this sense of doom hanging over us. In fact, the word revolution was mentioned a number of times, but it was a strange thing. No one had ever heard what a revolution was or experienced it. But people knew something bad was coming.
Yes.
Yes.
Did you stay in Lagos for some time after the outbreak of hostilities?
When the Ronzi regime was overthrown, there was a sort of vacuum. People didn't know what would happen next. And I was in Lagos up to that time until I started getting evidence that my neighbors were being taken off in the night and killed. So self-preservation is the first law of nature. I had to escape.
They did that in Lagos as well?
They did that in Lagos, yes.
I see.
They did that in Lagos as well. In fact, we have a boy on the federal ministry who barely escaped death, but his companion with whom he was kidnapped was actually killed. He's here in Biafra.
So when you the word genocide, which we hear in connection with the war here,
yes,
is a word which people always will have difficulties in accepting, in a sense. But what is your real opinion on it?
Well, my real opinion is that once Biafra has succeeded in proving that there is an intention for genocide, this is all we need. And we have ample evidence of that. Genocide is the ethnic extermination of a people. Biafrans do not want to wait until everybody has been killed. They have seen the signs of the intention. Our people were killed in hundreds of thousands. The war has come. It isn't a war of unification, as we are told. It is a war of extermination. As far back as 1947, Biafrans were attacked in Kano. In 1953, the same thing happened. Genocide is not spontaneous. It's a subtle process, which is a result of government propaganda. A government now uses the organ which should be used for protecting a people. It turns in that organ against the people and starts killing them using the government means. And everybody is indoctrinated to hate a particular class of people, to want them out of the way, to want to kill them.
Everybody is indoctrinated to hate a particular group and want to kill them. Need I say more? I'm very sorry to say this. Again, I say facts that make people cringe and make them want to deny it. But I live in the United States, and I've been in crowds where people didn't think I understood the language they were speaking. And the venom that was coming out of fellow Nigerians about Igbos was scary. And the reality is that the average one of these people has a minimum of a bachelor's degree, some with PhDs, and many have never had any real interactions with Igbos. But they could write a book on why they hate Igbos. It's sick. It's pathetic. If these people are so hated, why don't Nigeria just simply let Igbos go? Today, Nigerians are clamoring to restructure. And the biggest thing involved in restructuring is to have the different geopolitical zones manage their own zones with their own resources. That's the bane of restructuring. Part of the crime that bigoted Nigerians say that Igbos committed was that Aguirre was the one who introduced the unitary government, which is what we have today. That's a fact. But what the bigots failed to say was that that was a decision made by Aguirre in conjunction with everybody else on the Supreme Military Council. Today that's not working. Igbos and many progressives in the country are clamoring to abandon the 1999 Constitution that entrenches that unitary system because it benefits the cabal, and abandon the unitary system and return to autonomy of the regions and find a way to compensate the center. That's the fight we're having today. The same bigots who accused Aguirre for introducing the unitary government are the same bigots that are working with Tinubu and the Fulani Cabal to keep the status quo so they can keep stealing. Now let's go back to Aburi. At the time Ojukwu and Gowon went to Aburi, the civil war hadn't started. The Aburi meetings preempted the civil war. The agreement coming out of Aburi was that they'll go back and each region will run their own thing. Everybody stay on their own and contribute to the center. When Gowon came back to Nigeria, and the Fulani Cabal and the British realized what agreement was when they reneged. If you agreed on what came out of Aburi, maybe you can now negotiate how to have the Delta area control the oil, but with some kind of formula that still funnels some of the oil to the less privileged areas. It's all communication and negotiating, but he quelled it. In the meantime, when Odumegwu Ojukwu came back to eastern Nigeria, not Biafra, based on the agreement in Aburi, he encouraged Igbos who flee from the genocide in the north to now go back to their stations that everything was fine. Those Igbos went back to the north to continue their business, and they were massacred in the war trying to get back east. And if you listen to what Cyprian Ekwensi said in the preceding video, he said he decided to leave Lagos because it was now risky, because he was hearing stories about his neighbors being taken away at night and killed. These are facts. I hope you enjoyed the discussion, and I hope you have enough material here to reflect on. It's just a way to reflect on all the misunderstandings we have. It's all about looking for ways to forget the past and look for ways to move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Fred Nwankwo coming to you from our studios in Chicago with another edition of Bold Talk on Island TV. And until next time, good night and God bless.
nwanne ya ihe na-eji mba na-esi n'elu ụwa ya hụ ọnwụ nwanne ya hụ layi nwa ya hụ ịhụ nwanne m ihe na-eji mba na-esi n'elu ụwa ya hụ ọnwụ nwanne ya jerie akwụkwọ kada n'ala n'ala na nwaanyị arịala elu omega n'ọmata ihe kwehu ya n'elu ụwa onye tatakwala ya hụ alewelele ekurila mmiri nwunye di wee ya tụ na nwa m nwanne be nwanne di